We're live. Okay. Hey everybody, I'm coming to you from one of my absolute favorite spots to photograph. This is Dead Horse State Park near Moab, Utah. And this is, well, I've named him Sebastian. This is my favorite tree in all of Utah. He's not very big, as you can see, but we're going to make him big. We're going to make him the star of the scene by getting down close. So as I get close, foreground elements get bigger. I'm going to have a picture of him with Dead Horse Point behind us down below. You just have to get down low and squish around a little bit. So let's try it. Oh, I think about here. I just backed up a little bit. I've got my leg up here on the rocks, and it was enough distance back that I can get the entire tree. I can get a little bit of the plant off to the one side. That's called Mormon tea, by the way. And I've got enough to get some foreground here, plus the distant canyon, plus, I couldn't have asked for better, one little tiny little cloud showed up in the sky to break up the sky a bit. So this is just perfect. Such a beautiful tree, don't you think? All right, we got it. So I just did this shot, but I wanted to show you what happens if you don't get down low like Mel is down here right now. If you shoot up from above, the poor little tree gets tiny in the scene. Again, if you want to make something have a lot more impact, get closer to it. Especially the wider you are, the close stuff's going to get real big, the further stuff will get smaller in the shot. So by getting down close, you can make this tree look like it's 8 feet, 10 feet tall. I mean, just look at the tree from back here. It's nothing.
All right.
You know? But what happens, in fact, let's walk up here. And look at the difference. Now it's time to edit this photo. So we got down low, we've got our tree in the shot, and it's okay. I mean, positioning is fine. We've got it coming up into the sky and in the canyon beyond, but you can't really see it in between there. We need to do some things to separate out the scene. The colors are off. There's a lot of things off. So let's get editing. First thing, I'm in Lightroom. I've got the Develop panel open. And what's the first problem? Well, we're going to need to open up these shadows. So first, we're going to bring the highlights all the way down, and then we'll bring the shadows all the way up. Now, already that's an improvement. You can see things are starting to happen. So let's go ahead down to Presence, and we're going to add, we'll add some texture. We'll bring that up. We'll add some clarity. And we're going to add some dehaze because it's kind of hazy off in the background. We'll do 13's fine to start. Now, vibrance will bring up the blues and greens, so let's bring those up a bit. And saturation's way off. It's way low. I think something about like that is more realistic. Now, we've got a couple of other things going on. One, and you saw where I was sitting, so I'm slightly off angle-wise. So let's hit the crop tool. And I'm going to try to judge what horizontal is. This is actually pretty close, but to the eye, it looks just slightly off. And what I'm going to base it on is this mesa here across the canyon. This one actually does slope up a bit. I think just that much will do a good job of getting what we want. So let's hit enter on there. So we're straight now, but now we need to go into some other stuff. And we also have a couple of problems. One, there's some light flare. I don't know if you can see it there. Let's zoom in on that. Let's go to 50%. And let's zoom up top here. You can see there's a flare here. There's a flare here. I must have had something on my lens. Ooh, I've also got spots. In fact, let's hit the Q key and then the A key. And the A key is visualize spots. Again, who came up with these shortcuts? But if you hold it over there, you will see visualize spots is A. It makes no sense. But I do have this lens flare here that you can barely see under this. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to make my healing tool smaller, just bigger. Then apparently I have 3 spots, and here's a little one, and it looks to be probably some birds off in the distance. I don't want it to just look like a speck of dirt, so I'm going to get rid of those 2 as well. Now, it helps when you're here to also toggle the A key to see that you've got everything. And actually, I'm not really seeing anything else. Let's bring this over in our navigator to see if there's anything on the left. Seems to be something right there. Let's hit A. Yes, there is a little spot there. And here's again a speck in the sky. Not sure what it is, but it's going. And we'll toggle off A, and that seems to be pretty good. So let's hit the Z key to get out of our zoom. And we've made a lot of progress in a short period of time, but we have a problem that there are basically two different color temperatures in this scene. We have the more yellow-orange off in the distance, but up in the front, this plant should be much more green. Obviously, the foliage on the pine should be much greener, so there's a color temperature thing. Also, we have another big problem. This was shot with a polarizer, and if you take a look closely, you can see there's a big oval here where the polarizer is a little too strong. It lightens off as it goes off on either side. We need to do something about that. And here's where we're going to get to use one of the really cool new features in the masking panel. Let's deal with this first. Let's go ahead and select the sky first. So we selected the sky, it got around the tree. It did not do a great job in here, but we don't need to select that part. Now what we want to do is get just the part where that oval was. So what we're going to do is click on here and tell it to intersect the mask with a radial gradient. So I'm going to click right in here and we're going to drag this around and we can see the green where it's going to affect underneath and let go of that. And now we have this radial gradient, but notice now it isn't touching any of the tree. So what's the problem? Well, we need to bring the exposure up a little bit just so that it matches the surrounding blues. It doesn't need to be a perfect match because the sky does change its density as you rotate from left to right away from the sun. So I think about something like that. And you can see also as we've done that, we've got another lens flare. So let's hit enter on that. Get the Q key again, which is our healing tool. Just draw around that once, click on that once, and it's done. Now, I think the sky's now a little light, so I want to darken the entire sky. So let's click on the mask again, and we're going to create new mask, select sky. And there's our entire sky. In fact, you can see it missed some of the spots in between. I could click add, but I don't think it's going to be necessary in this case. But I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit just to darken it just a little bit. Just to add a little bit more. Maybe we'll add a little blue to it too. It doesn't need to be bluer. Let's find out. No, that's too much. Maybe just a smidge, a couple of points of blue. Okay, so now we have a nice blue. So I hit return to get out of the mask, hit return twice. Now I've got the tree to deal with first. So now we need to do some more masking. And I think this is going to be best done with a brush. So we click on the mask and we're going to create new mask and brush. Now notice you do see the keyboard shortcuts off to the side here. Brush is K, linear gradient is M, radial gradient is Shift M. You're going to use these a lot, so get used to just knowing that when you need a brush, just hit K. So I've got my brush. I got to turn auto mask on underneath this because I only want it to get things that match underneath the plus sign. And I'm going to drag through here. In fact, I'm just going to go around and click on all the green stuff, or stuff that's supposed to be green anyway. It may go out of color out of the lines a little bit, but that's okay for what we're about to do. And we'll clean it up manually. Okay, that did a pretty good job of selecting the tree. I can also just hold down the Alt or Option key, which will turn that to a minus, and then I can come alongside here and get rid of some of the distant canyon that it picked up. So let's go ahead. I'll go inside that little opening, back in here. Yeah, just to get rid of the stuff that isn't actually the foliage on the tree. And again, I'm just holding down the Alt key when I do that. That's good. So obviously it's too yellow. So let's scroll down to our color. What's the opposite of yellow? Well, you can see it's blue. So let's add blue to it. That'll get rid of some of the yellow. And then let's add green to it. And we'll get back our nice green foliage on that tree. Looking a heck of a lot better already. By the way, this plant right over here to the right is also green. So as long as we're here, we have the add button. Let's just click in here and paint over top of this and make sure we can turn it. It's not a bright green. This is a plant called Mormon tea, by the way. I might want to come back in there and make that a little darker. We'll deal with that in a minute. So let's just hit enter on that. In fact, let's get another brush. This time I'm just going to hit the K key and I'm going to select right in here. Again, it picked up some of the distant stuff, so hold down the Alt and we'll get this distant canyon here that shouldn't be part of that selection, and this rock right here. And let's make this a little darker. Bring the exposure down a smidge. Yeah, that's starting to look better. And we'll add some more blue and more green to it because it is kind of a darkish green. That's more appropriate. So what else is going on? A couple of things. We have some kind of flare over here. We'll deal with that separately. But what's happened is the trunk of the tree is too yellow. So let's hit K again to get a new brush. And I'm going to make my brush smaller. And we're going to just draw down the trunk of the tree to the rock. And then I can just walk around and click here to get some of these other spots. Again, hold down the Alt key to clean up the edges. And that's a pretty good job of selecting the tree. So again, the problem was the tree is too yellow. So again, we're going to add blue to it. And that's looking a heck of a lot better. It doesn't need a little green. Let's see, maybe a little green too. Yep, I think that's better. And I'm also going to bring up the exposure a little bit because this trunk is fairly bright. It's a fairly light color. And notice what that does. Notice how now it separates out the tree from the distant canyon. So now we just have some fine tuning to do. So let's hit return on that. So where are the other problems? Well, over here, this has gone a little bit too blue. Yes, it's a little bit of a haze here, and the sun's coming from that way, but it's gone a little too blue for my liking. And also, there's something going on here. Let's zoom in on that. In fact, let's go to 100% and look at that area. Yeah, that seems to be a lens flare as well. So let's deal with this one first. Let's just get our brush, again, hitting the K key, and let's darken that one up. Come down to exposure. Let's darken that, and it's got some color in it we don't want, so let's go to saturation and bring that saturation up. It's still got, actually, there's a little bit of blue to it. So I tried correcting this, and I'm not happy with it. And guess what? Unfortunately, I think this is going to have to be done in Photoshop. This is a little too technical for Lightroom, so let's finish off our Lightroom thing. As again, I mentioned, it's a little hazy here. So we're going to use a linear gradient this time, which is the M key. I hit the M key, and you can see it kind of comes down at an angle. So I'm going to select that area. And again, this is 100% to 50 and then 50 to 0. But we have the sky here, which we don't want. I want to subtract the sky from that mask. And look how great a job that does. It gives me, there's our mask. So now we can come down again. We can hide our masks here. What's the problem? Let's bring the exposure down a little bit. And let's add some dehaze to cut through the haze here. That's better. And is it a little too blue? I think this needs a little warmth, so let's put some yellow back into it. And oh, that looks a lot better. And now I see maybe the exposure was down a little too much, so let's bring that back up a smidge. And I think that's looking pretty darn good. All right. Now, I could say I'm done, but this thing over here is bothering me. So I think we're going to have to go into Photoshop to fix that. So Command or Control E to send this image into Photoshop. All right, so here's our image in Photoshop. Again, I mentioned the problems there. Let's just, let's get a regular lasso tool. I'm just going to draw around this and copy and paste. So I have that by itself on a layer. And let's zoom way in here. All right, so here's our spot that's the problem. And I think we need to select it. So let's get the magic wand. I will have it on set contiguous, and I want to get that, but I want to select the stuff around it as well. So let's just get these shadows, because I'm going to use the other spots around to fill in that problem area. All right, that's pretty good. So I'm going to get the stamp tool, or the S key, or the cloning tool, whatever you're used to calling it. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to sample in here. I just hit Alt and click, and I'm going to come down and paint in these areas that were the problem. And I'm just going to continue. And let's hit deselect on that, and there's problem solved. Here it is before and after. It allowed me to take the texture from up here and put it down into here, and that's good. That's really all the image needed here. So let's just hit, I'm going to flatten this. So Command E, and I'm going to save it, and that'll send that back into Lightroom. All right, here's our image now fixed with you can see this area over here, that was a problem. What else do I need to do just to help to make it a little bit better of an image? I think there's a little too much sky on the top, so let's hit the R key, which is the crop tool. I'm going to bring this down on the top. I'm going to leave a little headroom, make this a little more of a panoramic feel. I want to leave the bottom, so I'm going to leave that alone. And let's hit enter on that. And let's add a vignette. So we'll come down to effects. I'm going to do a -12, just cut to the chase, or you can use the slider. -12 vignette. Again, looks subtle, but you can see it just darkens up the edge. One last question. Do I want to add a little more direction to the tree? Let's try it. Shift M is the radial gradient as we used before. So I'm going to put it over the tree, and then I'm going to angle it from right to left just where the tree is. And let's bring up the exposure a little bit on that, just to add a little more life. It's making the trunk a little bit bigger, a little bit brighter rather. So let's add some contrast back in, and I'm going to bring down the highlights a smidge on the trunk. And that will add a little bit more focus to the image that we've been playing with. Here's our original shot. This is the original raw shot that we just took. And again, you can see the composition's interesting, but the color is off. But with our little Lightroom fixes and one little short trip into Photoshop, we transformed that into this. And now we've got a great image of that tree hanging out over Dead Horse Point State Park in Moab, Utah. Hope you enjoyed that. That was fun. I love this tree, and you can see from the video that this tiny thing now looks like a massive tree overlooking the canyon. Thanks for watching, and I will see you online again soon. Have a great week. Bye-bye.